Hello, 47670 students. This is just going to be a brief introduction to getting started with ArcGIS Online and working on the first assignment. There's a lot more than what we're going to talk about in this video that we'll talk about in class and work on in class as well. But I wanted to have some sort of video available to you that you could, go back and forth and take a look at. So first off, of course, you have to sign in to ArcGIS Online. I sign in a little bit differently than you do because my account's much older. You should be using the two-step authentication process to sign in. I have a slightly different system, but once you get in, it should look the same. You'll have a number of tabs up here. The Content tab is where you're going to find all of your various files and maps. We may look at that later on. We're going to start off, though, doing mapping and just clicking on that Map tab. That's where you will create the first map that you're going to be working on. And once you get to this first view, you're going to have to ultimately find where it is you're going to go to. You can search for it, or you can just zoom right in, which is what I'm going to do because I'm looking at the map of Alaska anyhow, and it's pretty easy for me to zoom in and find the forest park area that we'll be mapping and talking about all semester long. Now, the first thing that you will notice is that you get this sort of bland base map, but that's very easy to change the base map. You should just be able to go up here and look at More and click on Base Map, and then choose what it is you want to have as the base map. And there are a number of different options. I'm just going to go with imagery because it's the easiest to do right now. But feel free to experiment with this. This first assignment is all about experimentation, and so I'd like you to do that. And once you do this, I think a useful thing to do is actually to click to save as, and actually give yourself a name so you don't lose anything once you get started. So I'm just going to call it Forest Park Map #1. And go ahead and save that. It might take a little bit of time to process any time you save or bring in new data or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and close that base map thing, and now I'm going to go to the layers over here. And layers are where we're going to be able to see what data we have brought into the map. But right now there's nothing, so I'm going to go ahead and add some. And there are a bunch of different ways to add, including searching for information and finding cool things that you might want to put on there. We're not going to do that today, but you can look into that if you want to. I am going to start off with adding a layer from a file. And I've given you some files that you can experiment with. These are the shape files that we're going to talk about in class. And when you bring them in, they will be brought in as zipped folders, because inside of them there are a number of different files. So I'm bringing in a zipped folder of the footprint, and again it will take a little bit of time to process it and get it ready to go. But once you have done that, you should be able to see it pretty easily in the layers. I had to pause the video because it took a minute or two for it all to load up, but I am back now. And the first thing you'll see is it might not look the way you want it to look. And so the very first thing you can do is you can play around with editing the layer style. And this isn't super intuitive at first, but you'll click on that layer style, and then you have to scroll down here to pick a style, and you'll just be doing the single symbol. Maybe later on in the course we'll experiment with some of these other things, including using attributes. But for the time being, we're just going with the simple thing. And then once you get here, you can click on this, and you can change the color to a color that you want. I'm going to choose a green, and I'm going to make it a little bit more transparent than it was before so we can see it. And I'm going to change the outline of this to sort of a dark green. I could change the color and make it sort of a greenish black if I wanted to, just so it looks a little bit better to me. Again, I want you to experiment, so I am hoping that you will do some of that experimentation. So I've added the first layer, and I'm hoping that you're going to be adding at least a couple of layers and experimenting with them before you find out exactly what you want your map to look like. So I'm done with that now, and I'm going to go ahead and close that layer. I want to add another layer as well, and I'm going to add an Avenza layer. And we're going to talk about Avenza in class. This is the mobile field data app that you'll be using on your phone. I've created a very simple set of data that I'm going to load in right now. You're going to bring that in as well as a shapefile. So I'm going to go ahead and add it as a layer from the file. And then I'm going to bring in what I called, my layer was the 470 experiment. And again, I'm going to show you how to do this actually in class. We'll have another sort of session about this. It's going to be a shapefile as well. And I'm going to create it and add it to the map. After about a minute or so, it popped up as before. Now, you will see when you bring this in, if you are bringing in a combination of point, line, and polygon data, that you won't be able to go over here and edit it the way that I did in the last one. And that's because if you have point, line, and polygon data, it's grouping them all together, and it's not allowing you to vary between the different types of data to change the symbology. But you can go up here, click on that options, and click ungroup. And as soon as you do that, it will break the shapefile into two groups, which is point, line, and polygon data. And you can see what each of these are by hiding them. And you can see that's the point because the points went away. And then I'm going to click on that. And the line went away. That's up here. And then here's the polygon right here. And I recommend probably that you go in here and change the name of this. And so, you could just call it something like point data or Avenza point data or something like that, just so you can disaggregate them. I'm not going to do all of that right now. But as before, we can make that layer active now, and we can go in and edit the layer style. And again, you'll have to choose a single symbol. Typically, you won't have enough for a heat map, at least at first you won't. You can edit this. And here, we can edit the color, we can edit its size, we can do a bunch of different things here if we want to. A fun thing to do probably for you will be to go in and see all the different types of symbols that are available to you out here. So I'm just going to sort of pick that blue one right there. And I guess I could change its size a little bit as well. Some of these things you're able to change the color on them as well. Lots of different things that you are potentially able to do here. And you can do that with the polygon and also with a line as well. And one thing, as we'll talk about in class, that I want you to do is to try to come up with a pleasing theme, colors that harmonize with one another, and also the type of data and information that you're collecting will all make a little bit of sense in the context of the map as well. Something I'm not really doing here. The last thing that is required, and you are free to experiment with more than what I've asked for, but is to add something that's called a sketch layer. And a sketch layer is going to allow you to put your own text on this and also to draw on areas and points and lines, whatever you think is appropriate for that. And in order to do that, you are going to have to go here to the toolbar and choose what it is that you're going to put in here. And I'm just going to go down to text and click on text right here. And I'm going to plop that down right here. Now, again, it's not super intuitive always for people who are doing this the first time. But if you go down to this content area right here and click on that, when you type in there, that should change this. So I'm just going to call this Dorn's Forest Park map, and you'll see that it shows up here. You can go ahead and change the font if you want to. You can change the color of things. In fact, why don't I sort of make mine like a dark green right here. You can also add effects as well, and there are a bunch of different effects, but there's some sort of basic ones. I'll sort of put a halo on here so that we're able to see this. All right, a little bit of a skip in the video there because I accidentally clicked something and had to go back and sort of edit it. There are lots of different ways that you can edit this as well, And again, in class, we can talk a little bit more about that as we need to. So the next thing I want to do is go ahead and save this file. And then I want to get you to share the map as well. And there are a couple things you can do here, but the most important thing to do is to go to Manage Sharing. And when you're in Manage Sharing, make sure that this is open to everyone in the public and say Save that way. It's going to ask you to review the sharing. Do you want to have it with the whole public? I'm going to say yes, I do. And then it should take you back to the map. Then you can click on Share Map again, and you can click Copy the link to the map. And I strongly recommend that you then open up a browser in something like Incognito and cut and paste whatever you just produced there to make sure that you're actually able to see this map, that it looks right. And in fact, it does look right. It comes up as the map, though. Another option that you have here, though this is not a requirement of the assignment, but something that you could play around with if you wanted to, is go down to Create an App. And in creating an app, you'll have to set the privacy settings, make it public as well. You can create just a very basic map, a basic app, and then you can produce something that just looks a little bit cleaner on the screen when you share it with people. So again, in class, we'll spend a little bit of time looking at that. So this is just a start. I wanted to let people have an understanding of how this is going to work and how you're going to be working on your first project. I want to make it clear to everyone I'm not much of an expert in ArcGIS Online. I know the other ArcGIS products a little bit better, so I'll be learning with you a little bit. But we'll figure it all out. We'll end up being able to produce some decent maps and then eventually story maps by the end of all this.